I'm Mark from Founders&Tips, and today we are talking with Guy Michelin, CEO and founder at Eatwith. Hi, Guy.
Hi, pleasure.
Pleasure to be. Can you first begin explaining us your professional background before previous beginning Eatwith?
Sure. So I started my career as a lawyer for the state attorney's office in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went and worked for 3 years at the state attorney's office doing litigation before the Supreme Court. Then I realized that lawyers don't change the world, so I quit and I came to the States, did my MBA at Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And during school, I started the company with one of my professors that was called Clean Scores and was aggregating health department information across the US and making it accessible to the public. This venture didn't really go well, so we closed it after a year and a half. And then I did solar energy for 3 years in Israel. And then almost randomly, I came about the idea of starting Eatwith. And together with my co-founder in 2012, we left what we were doing and we co-founded the company.
Mm-hmm. How the idea of Eatwith comes from?
The idea came from a trip that my wife and I took to the island of Crete in Greece in 2011. And we've been on the island for like 4 days. We fell into every possible tourist trap on the island. And then after 4 days, I figured that there has to be a better way to eat and to meet locals. So through a friend of a friend of a friend, we managed to be invited to a local family for a dinner on a Friday night. And it was by far the best thing that happened to us on the trip. Not necessarily the food, but just the whole atmosphere and the fact that somebody local just opened his home and invited us and spent like 3 hours with us. And from there, the idea came about. So when I came back to Israel, I started to think maybe there's a marketplace opportunity that on one hand can empower hosts and chefs to turn their homes into a restaurant and can connect them with travelers and locals that want to have an alternative to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about the team, and I would like to know how you convince or how was the matching with your co-founder. You could try to convince him it was a business you begin together from the beginning, and also how important is the team for you, and how do you think this affect to the successful startup? It's a lot of little
It's,
questions.
no. It's good questions. It's kind of like the core of a startup, and it sounds a cliche, but everybody say that the team is the most important thing, and I
Mhm.
I truly believe that also. So my co-founder and I met. We were all. It was a match. Somebody matched us together
Uh-huh.
because
You
when
were
I
looking for a co-founder, or you met
yeah
him before? Okay.
no I was actually looking for a co-founder. So when I came about the idea, since I'm not a technical person, I was actually looking for a technical co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
And a mutual friend that works in a VC, one of his relatives is my co-founder. So he just sold his company to IBM,
Mm-hmm.
and he was looking for his next thing. And our mutual friend knew that he's looking and I'm looking, so he matched us together for a coffee. And my co-founder, his name is Shemer, he also had a similar experience to mine when he was traveling once. So he immediately got the idea and he understood the consumer need here. And we started to talk and we met probably over 2 weeks and talked about the vision and
Mm-hmm.
how do we go about building this business. And then after 2 weeks, we decided, okay, let's give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing is that we started in a local accelerator in Tel Aviv. So kind of like a key incubator,
Okay.
which was 4 months, and you had to commit to do it full time. So we had a very kind of like intense pre-marriage period to test the relationship, I would
Uh-huh.
call it this way, because we were working in a very small room and it was very long hours. So very quickly you could see if it's a good match or not.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we had a third co-founder which didn't work out with. So it was a very good, yeah, it was kind of like a test period. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of this, two of us decided that we want to go forward with that. And so we raised our seed round and basically we started the company.
Mm-hmm. Cool. your first location city where you begin was Barcelona, was
Right,
the first business validation
right.
going from Barcelona. And I would like to know a little bit more about the experience about Barcelona MVP. I don't know if we can call it this way, but
Yeah.
the first experience, why you choose Barcelona, what you learned from Barcelona that can be applied for the other cities.
That's a good question. So our investors in the seed round wanted us to prove the concept outside of Israel.
Hmm.
And so we figured that we probably want to do Europe rather than the US because Europe is closer to Israel
Hmm.
and food is very much part of the history and the culture. And
Okay.
we're essentially looking at the most touristic cities in Europe, and Barcelona is in the top 10. And we kind of like eliminated all the other ones for various reasons. And Barcelona is just this amazing city. There is a direct flight between Tel Aviv to Barcelona, so
Hmm.
we knew we need to be on the ground as much as possible. And we found this great guy who was basically the first community manager in Spain. He
Hmm.
still is managing our whole community, and that was the reasoning to start in Barcelona. And it's funny because the first time I came there, everyone that we met said that all the Catalans told us it's a stupid idea, and Catalans are very reserved, and they would never open their homes. So there's no way you're going to find hosts here. So you should find another city. And we didn't give up, and we started looking for hosts. And we were very happy to find out that people are happy to host and to open their homes.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think all in all, it was a great decision. The only thing that in hindsight, maybe I would reconsider is just because of the language. Because we don't speak the language,
Okay.
uh, there were some issues that when you're doing user interviews or you're trying to really understand the subtleties
Hmm.
of the users, you just don't understand because you don't speak Spanish, and then you have to speak in a language which is not native, not to the Catalans and not to
Hmm.
me as an Israeli. So I think some things were lost in translation there. So the language, I would say, is the only reason maybe I would reconsider if I had to do it again.
Hmm.
But other than this, I think it was a great decision.
Hmm. Because on the during the time you were launching Barcelona, you also were doing some interview to the user. You were also doing some type of research to validate that the idea has a good fit.
Yeah.
What did you do? Sorry.
So mostly it was just to talk to people. So I was trying to to go to as many dinners as I can, to talk to
Hmm.
the hosts, to understand why they do it, and the one that quit, why they quit, and then to try to go during the dinners to talk to the guests and understand why they're there, and would they come back again. So nothing really scientific. It's just more like talking to the users, like going out, having coffee, and trying to figure out if there's a good fit both for the host and the guest. Because at the beginning, we had a couple of hosts that didn't continue, and it worried me. I didn't understand why.
Hmm.
So I needed to understand both sides of the marketplace.
Okay. I read that you define Eatwith as the Airbnb for dining.
Dining,
Uh,
yeah.
that's a way to sell the idea of the business, or it's really something you how to say it's something that it's inside the company like a vision, or it's a way of explaining what you are doing.
So it evolved. At the beginning, that's the way it was the easiest way to explain it because when we started, everybody like this, it wasn't a well-known category. It's still, till this very day, many people don't understand
Hmm.
what it is. It's not like you're getting into a market that already exists or to an existing product. So when you're talking about a new category, sometimes it's easier to explain it referring to another category that other people already know. So it was mostly a way at the beginning to understand, to explain to people who don't understand the category what it is. And if you need to do it in 3 words, it was an easy way to explain it. To be honest, it's not a vision. The vision is, or tagline, if you want, is bringing the world together 1 meal at a time. And the vision is like to connect people from all around the world around the dining table.
Hmm.
At the beginning, this Airbnb for food was, I think, was a good description of the business because it was mostly for travel. Reality is that in the last year and a half, more than half of our business is actually for locals.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't think about it anymore as an Airbnb for food. We more think about it as a kind of like a platform to empower food entrepreneurs to start their own food business or to turn their home into a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And for the user side, it's just to find dining experiences that they can't find in a restaurant, which is much more intimate, social. You get a direct connection to up and coming chefs in your city. So we kind of like moved away from defining ourselves as a travel company to being more broad and also to cater to locals.
Mm-hmm. You comment that every time there are more people, local people going to these events,
Right.
this is something that it's moving on this direction, and it's something natural. It's something you are promoting. How is it?
It's something that happened naturally because, like I told you, it came about from the idea came from a travel experience. So we didn't
Mm-hmm.
even think about the local crowd, but then we started seeing locals using the product, and locals in many ways are easier to target. Like with travel, our biggest challenge was distribution. We found that distribution is really, really hard, and repetition is also something which is very challenging when you talk about travel. People travel on average 1 or 2 times a year. So we saw these challenges in travel, and in parallel to that, we saw locals starting to show up. And with locals, the potential for repetition and the word of mouth and all those challenges that we had at travel are less prominent. And since we saw people already are using it and we saw that there is value for locals, we said, okay, let's focus on locals and try to make it work for locals. And then the travelers probably will show up anyway because the travelers want to be where the locals are.
Yeah. Mhm. In when we're talking about attracting users and marketing, what's the main channels or actions you are doing to attracting new users?
So it's still something we're working on. Our by far the two channels that have been working for us the best is word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
People have great experience, and it's also something people like to talk about. So one person have a great experience, promotes it to other people, and we're very, very adamant on keeping. We're basically measuring the user satisfaction every day. So we have this NPS that we're collecting on a daily basis, and we have a very, very high NPS, about 87, which is very, very high. And we think that as long as it's high, it means that people have a great experience and they tell the friends. So organic traffic is by far our call it biggest pie of the distribution, a biggest share of the distribution pie.
Mm-hmm.
The second channel has been working very well for us is PR. So the media likes the story. It's very human story. It's food.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of kind of like personal human stories that come out through the experiences and from the platform. And so we get a lot of PR all around the world, which also helps to convert people into users.
Mm-hmm. You are. It begins in Barcelona. Now there are more cities. How is this expansion of the model by cities? You are going to expand to more cities soon. What's the plan of expansion?
Yeah, so we have today about 160 cities all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Our main cities are still Barcelona, Tel Aviv, New York, and San Francisco, where we have teams on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we're adding more cities every month.
Okay.
And it goes two ways. One is we're looking at the more uh, dense populated cities and touristic cities,
Mm-hmm.
and also where we get a lot of demand, like inbound requests from hosts to open up a community, then we're also doing that.
Mm-hmm. And how you control the quality of the host or the bench? How you ensure that there's no problems on the bench or people going to a bench from the same both ways, host and
Yes.
attendants.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We actually realized very early on that the trust component of the marketplace is a very, very important part
Mm-hmm.
of the whole experience and the whole product. So on the host side, we have a very strict vetting process. We actually only accept like 4% of all the applications.
Mm-hmm.
And we look at different criteria. We interview all the hosts before they go on the platform. And we mostly go physically to their places, either someone from our team or a photographer that we hire.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a physical inspection, if you want, or a physical vetting to most of the hosts. And then they do a demo dinner where we taste the food, we look at the apartment, we interview the host.
Mm-hmm.
And only hosts that meets the criteria are basically allowed to go online and to publish their offers. And then it's basically up to the crowd to source the good hosts from the bad ones. And there's rating and reviews, and there's the NPS. So these are all indicators that come to monitor that it's great experiences. And honestly, after the strict vetting process, we don't get bad hosts. We just, all of them are good. Some of them are good, some of them are very good, some of them are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them are above what we define as the bar. So since we started, I think maybe we had to like kick out maybe 2 hosts. So the vetting process works. It's definitely a very high bar. And on the other side, it's also a good question, like how do you basically give the host the comfort level that the people that come to their homes are not going to do anything crazy. And so the host actually has full control to accept or to decline any request that comes in. So if the profile of the guest doesn't look to the host or there's anything else that he doesn't feel comfortable with, he can just decline the request and there's no questions asked. It also doesn't happen a lot because what we see is that the product is kind of like like people are self-selecting themselves to come to dinners. It's people that value food and value other people. Otherwise, I don't think you would even consider booking an Eatwith dinner. So up till now, we didn't have any issues with guests in the last 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm. And what are the main challenge on the next year or years for Eatwith?
For Eatwith, for us, it's most at this point of the marketplace. So marketplace, as you know, you have to build supply and demand to balance them all the time. Because if you have too much supply and not enough demand, then the sellers they leave because they don't have enough work. If you have too much demand and you don't have supply, then buyers can't buy. So for us right now, we're at the point that we're focused mostly on the buyers, so on the demand side. We have so many people from around the world. I want to say tens of thousands that want to open basically a home restaurant all around the world. We are still kind of like working on the playbook on how to consistently fill up their events and make sure that they're happy once they join the platform and they can basically run a business if they want. So we have a couple of hosts today around the world that are doing it full time. And our goal right now is to kind of like build a playbook or systemize it. So anyone anywhere in the world that want to join as a host and he meets the criteria, we have the playbook on how to kind of like activate his business. And before we have this complete playbook, we're not completely opening the gates for other hosts around the world, just for the reason that we talked about. We don't want to have people or hosts that are disappointed because it doesn't meet their expectation to run a business.
And any final advice for other entrepreneurs that are listening this interview?
Final advice.
Or several advice. Doesn't need to be one.
Yeah.
As many as
I
you
don't know.
want.
It sounds cliches, but I do think the team is everything. I would think very, very, very carefully about the founding team and spend a lot of time together to make sure that you get along and that you get married. I see my co-founder probably 3 or 4 times more than I see my wife. So you have to make sure that it works out, because we had both example, like with my current co-founder, it worked out well. And like I said at the beginning, we had someone that it didn't work out well. So in retrospect, I think this is something that's really, 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 really go to the fundamental of the business and everyone needs to really think about that and make sure that they feel very comfortable to get married to this person, essentially. And then also every person that you bring on the team, there has to be a good match, not just to make sure that the person is capable and smart, but there's also a good match culturally. Choose your advisor wisely. That's advisors and investors, I would say. I would almost say that the investors, you need to interview them almost like co-founders, because they're with you and you may need to make sure that they're with you in this for the long run and that they bring value. So that's also a very important thing. It's almost part of being part of the team. And the second thing is to launch as quickly as possible. In hindsight, I think for us, it took too much to launch because we were trying to get it too much perfect. And anyway, you don't get it right the first time. So I would launch, if I had to do it again, I would launch much faster, learn all the mistakes and do mistakes. And you always do mistakes. And then just iterate as quickly as possible. So these are like, it maybe sounds like a cliche, but if I had to do it all over again, these are like the two things that I would put a lot of emphasis on.
Okay, thank you very much, Guy,
You're
and I wish
welcome.
you a lot of success with Eatwith all
Thank
over the
you.
world,
Thank you very
and
much.
I will keep following you.
Okay, great. Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.